And we're live. TJ Gamble in the building. TJ, how we doing?
Fantastic, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. You know, to start things off, I do got to take my glasses off though. I almost forgot to do that. Shoot, man. It's gonna mess up all my thumbnails and everything. To start things off, man, what's the latest with your studio? You're always hacking on it, always improving it. Some would say you are obsessed with the recording studio. Others would say, you appreciate a good YouTube clip. And but so what have you been doing lately with the studio, man?
Yeah, I'm going to preface this with I don't recommend anybody else do this. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to tell others to follow my lead on this because it has gotten completely and totally out of hand. What am I working on? What am I not working on? Like literally I am working on everything in the studio. I just got in my new green screen setup, which is 13 feet long, over in the
Now,
corner there, floor to ceiling.
what do you need a 13-foot green screen for, man?
Okay.
Help me
Let
understand
me
this.
explain. Yeah, let me explain to you where we're going.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I am working on, first of all, we're trying to take the stream up a few notches. And so we're trying to do a little more storytelling with the stream. And I don't know if you saw the stream we did with Shopware recently, where I was in the barrel house and I was
Yeah, I
picking
saw
out the
that.
whiskey to start the stream and all of that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to take that to the next level. Like literally what I am going to get to is I'm going to get to where, and this is for the stream, but we're also going to leverage this for videos, but I'm going to get to where I can do 3D environments rendered in real time in Unreal Engine and have me engage with those environments via the green screen with a multi-camera setup. So if you zoom in, you
That's
actually get
wild.
perspective change and focus change. And if you switch cameras, like the environment is basically a live environment and you can place me anywhere in that environment.
That's
That
crazy.
that's where we're going for the
Is
streams,
that
right? So that we
is
can
anybody doing
tell those
that? Like,
stories a little better.
I don't know if I've ever seen that on YouTube
Well, I
though.
mean, Hollywood studios are doing that. They've been
Right.
doing that for a little while. They're moving. A lot of new studios are going that way. A lot of election coverage is done that way nowadays. But the benefit of that real time. The problem with green screens are the size, right? If you reach too far, your arm gets cut off. Like that little clip I did in the barrel house, I'm in the corner the whole time for a reason because if I take one step
Yeah.
to the right, I start getting clipped off because the
Yeah.
screen is bigger than my green screen.
Yeah.
So you want to if you want to do something more than that, you have to have a bigger green screen. But then the problem is it's more of an editing hassle. And what we're building here is to do it quicker. And so if we can render it in real time, the computer here can actually record it as if it was really there. And so
Mm,
we don't have any editing afterwards. We don't have any of those problems. Like it is actually output. And then you can also output it as green screen footage as well.
mm.
So you have that if you need to go back and make any adjustments. So, we can go further and faster and easier. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'd do anything easy, but simpler.
I,
Yeah,
I I don't think easy is in your vocabulary. You're
probably
always
not.
probably not.
Uh, but, it's just this whole studio is we have a vision for where we want to go with the content, and I'm just trying to slowly, as slow as I can, build out the studio to allow me to do that and to make it easy. So, like I ordered a NAS server over there for file storage. So I've got the networking equipment we added a few months ago that allows me to set up a VPN and segment off employees into a different network than the rest of the stuff here at the house. So they can VPN in, they can access the files.
Mm,
I've got a new capture card over here. So we've got a new capture card here that'll capture 4 camera inputs. And so I don't even have to press a button on the camera. I sit down, I press a button right here on my little streaming device. It's
mm.
recording 4 inputs to a hard drive that automatically syncs it over to the NAS server. When it's done, they VPN, they can start editing. Right? We're trying to simplify the setup so that we can put out high quality content So there's no limits on the quality, and we can do it with some
Yeah.
efficiency.
The network storage that is so that people can eat. Is that so that nobody like? Is that to prioritize your bandwidth for your streams, or is that to make it easy, like you're saying, for team members to VPN in and edit files quickly?
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with bandwidth, right? It's
Oh.
it's really more like right now our workflow is this. We have one editor we're working with. We're going to have multiple to put out the amount of content, especially with some of the more complicated videos formats we're working on. We're going to
Mm,
have multiple editors to try to put those out in a timely manner. And so
mm,
right now, I come in here, I sit down, I make sure the lights are right. And then I get up and test the mic and all that. I go around to the cameras, I put an SD card in them, I press record. Every time you touch those cameras, you run the risk of them moving a little bit or
right.
losing focus or the frame being
Right.
off, or we've got them on there pretty good, but you still have that risk, and it does happen. So I press those buttons and I come back, I sit down, I record the video. I've got two cameras, so I record into this one and then I record into that one. And then when I'm done, I have to get up, I stop the videos. And then if we're recording another video, I start it for the second video and I sit down and I go through that process. And then when I'm finished, I have to get the cards out, come over here, take these files and drop them onto a Google Drive folder,
Mm-hmm.
which takes forever. Like I have to drop one file, wait for it to upload. So it'll
Mm-hmm.
delete the local copy because we're recording in 4K, and then
Mm-hmm.
drop the next one. And so if we've recorded 6 videos, it may take me hours to get that footage to the
Right.
editors.
Right.
Um, and so, I know Dropbox works a little better. We're about to try to play with that a little bit, but the whole goal is it no longer becomes my problem once it's recorded.
Yeah,
Like
you just get
it's over
in.
there. They just log in and go for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been trying to like with the focusing, every time I get ready, I turn my camera on. It's always out of focus. And then I gotta like manually, it's just a little thing but to the extent that you can just get in, not think about all I have this whole setup now for when I do videos to where I have my windows all in the right place and all that kind of stuff. And it just helps you to not be distracted. Did you like want to make movies when you were a kid? Is that like did you grow up like is that like kind of the thing you're shooting for? Like,
We want to be creative. But as a kid, no, I mean, making movies wasn't. I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere. Making movies wasn't. It wasn't a real thing people did, right? Like
yeah,
nobody did that.
right.
So it's not something I aspire to there, but we want to make the most engaging content we possibly can, and
Yeah.
we've severely overinvested right from it. We could have got these same results with a phone, and some properly chosen topics, but you got to understand where we're trying to push towards, and nobody will understand until we get there.
Yeah.
And then, luckily for us, once we get there, it'll be too late for everybody else to catch up.
Right, right, right. So you took a vacation recently. One of your vacation log tweets, you talked about, feeling insignificant in the grand scheme of things, whether it's like an ego thing to want a bigger impact versus like a deeper impact. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently as well, especially with like doing more of this YouTube content. Like sometimes I take a step back and I kind of go like, why am I doing all this stuff, like putting all this public stuff out there? And it is kind of a weird thing, and I don't know if that was related to how you were feeling or not. It was fun getting a little glimpse into the mind of TJ on vacation, which is always on business. You're always thinking about business and stuff. But so what was that about for you, man? Flesh that out a little bit for me.
I know we're going to get the midlife crisis stuff. Like we're at that age where you
Right.
start thinking about your place in the universe. But that's not where this conversation comes from for me, because this has always been a problem. Everything I do, from the studio to like literally everything, from building cars to buying houses, whatever I do, I always try to go too far. Always, and
Okay.
that even the content we create, I I struggle, and I struggled for a long time with trying to make everything profound, right? Like this has to have an impact, or what's the purpose in putting something superficial out there? And so, as I get older though, it starts to get a little more real. I mean, I'm 41 years old. My dad passed away at 56.
Oh,
So what if I've got 15 years left, right? Like
yeah.
what if my older brother had a heart attack at 40,
Oh,
and
wow.
if not for just dumb luck, he wouldn't have survived that. So, I may not even have 15 years left. So, we're given this life, we're given this opportunity. And so what are we supposed to do with it? Like, what are we, you obviously your children, you're going to have an impact on them, right? Whether you did a good job or a bad job parenting them, they wouldn't exist without you. You've had an impact on them.
Yeah.
Hopefully you at least tried to do a good job. But outside of that, like, how much of an impact should we try to have? Should we want more? Should we want a legacy? Should we want to be remembered, right? Or should we just exist? Like, is the point to exist? Because, once we die, whether you're religious or whether you're not, we don't know what's next. And so, religion obviously helps people, point to the fact that this life is, not what's important. What's important is doing what you need to get to the next life. But, outside of that, what really is the purpose? What really are we trying to do? And for me, that's trying to help people. That's trying to do the most we can to have the biggest impact we can possibly have. I mean, I grew up, extremely poor in the middle of nowhere in Alabama. Didn't find the internet until I was, in high school. Ended up on this path. Nothing has been easy. I've grown this company with absolutely no money. And so, what can I now do to help others that are struggling, to make it just a little bit easier for them to get to where I am, so that even if I didn't have a big enough impact, maybe I enabled them to have that impact, right? And so, as we get older, just having those thoughts and trying to wrestle with those terms. And I don't think there's an answer, right? I don't think there's this clear cut answer that's out there, but sitting on a beach drinking a little bit too much Jack Daniels. That's what I was thinking about that.
That'll do it. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you sharing all that, man. And but like, so if you could get into it, like, what is the specific, what is a specific thing that you're thinking about? Like, do I want to go wide versus deep? Is it like business owners, that you want to help with certain things, or, and if it's personal, obviously we don't need to get into it, but.
Yeah, I'm an open book, so whatever you want to talk about. That's part of the struggle, though, right? Like, I'm in e-commerce, so what kind of impact can you have? You can help business owners grow their business. Well, you have to charge them for it. Like, I have to make a living. I can't do everything by myself. I have to have employees that are going to do some work. So outside of content, we obviously have to charge people to help them, which limits how many people we can help. There's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many people that can afford you. So, let's make the content free. Let's try to put out as much of it as we possibly can. But then even outside of that, like, is e-commerce where, my capabilities are best suited? Do I start creating content that's bigger than e-commerce? Do I try to, stretch outside of that? And then what are the challenges of that? Like, will I ever be, if I tried to start a Joe Rogan podcast, would I ever be successful at that? Like, I'm so far behind others that could possibly do that. And I'm so far ahead of others in e-commerce at this point in my life. I don't think I have any choice but to double down in e-commerce, right? Because that's the only place at my age where I feel like I could possibly have some sort of profound impact.
Right. Yeah. I've been doing a weird thing where I struggle with that balance and that mix, and I do less good job of it as you do, of focusing on the niche. And so I'll do, I did an interview with a buddy yesterday that wasn't e-commerce specific, and I'm starting to try to go outside of those boundaries a little bit, but also kind of stay within them. And maybe sometimes that means talking with someone who's in e-commerce, and some parts of the talk are related to e-commerce and some parts are just life or whatever. And then you can always pick the highlight clips that are business, that are relevant to your audience and to business and things like that. But I feel like on some level, like having a good mix of stuff in a podcast can make it interesting, because everybody has life outside of business and stuff, and even like an e-commerce audience, I think, can relate to some of those different things, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You can make your if you're saying though that an e-commerce audience can relate to some of those things, you're still trying to make an impact within e-commerce, right? Like that
Yeah,
is still the audience you're speaking to, or at least reaching, whether that's the audience you want or not. That's
yeah,
the audience you're reaching.
right,
And those people struggle with a lot of different aspects of life, not just e-commerce. I mean, that's
right.
hopefully a very small part of the things that they're going through and experiencing in life. So yeah, absolutely, you can have a bigger impact, but you've still got to be, outside of a few exceptions, you need to be focused or you're not going to get reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would you do if you could do the quote sort of Joe Rogan at, like, not if you didn't have to at all worry about the niche that you've built and all that kind of stuff, do whatever you wanted, like what would you do? Would you talk about cars or just like talk to business owners about stuff, or
Well, I don't think cars is. I love cars. Don't get me wrong. That would be fun if
just drink
if I were
whiskey
just
all day long?
so, yeah, drink whiskey and talk cars, play with them, not drive them and drink whiskey, but outside of that, enjoy them. But if you're going to try to have an impact, the things I feel like I do pretty well. I try to be as honest as I possibly can. I try to be as direct as I possibly can without being too direct to hurt somebody's feelings. I feel like I see both sides of most arguments, and
Hmm.
I feel like most of the problems that we have in this world come down to a few key differences, but then the issue is polarized for political gain. So, being able to break down those issues and try to provide both sides of the argument to see if we can't see the similarities as much as the differences,
Hmm.
would be something that would interest me greatly. But again, that's what does it take to do that? And am I the right person to do that?
Yeah, I could totally see you doing that, man. I think it actually kind of ties in one of the other things I was going to ask is, like, I think you are like such a genuinely nice dude, and like that really comes through. Everybody's like, I think, sees that and likes that about you and is drawn to your content because of that. You also posted recently, you said, I'm too soft. I'd be a lot more successful if I was about 25% more asshole. So I gotta hear more about that. I'm curious, like, what the origin of that was.
Well, I don't necessarily know if there was an origin per se. Lots of things are the catalyst behind that thought, but if you're going to be successful, you need to be aggressive. Your crimes need to be crimes of aggression. You need to apologize for going a little too far, a little too fast, rather than not doing something. And in business, to be aggressive, you've got to be just a little bit of an asshole, because if somebody is standing in your way, you
Mm,
have to move that person, right? If a team member is not performing, you have to be aggressive in giving them an opportunity and aggressive in replacing them if it's not working out.
mm,
You have to be, aggressive and demanding in what you expect from people, and make a change when you're not getting what you expect. And sometimes I take a little too long. I give a few too many chances, or I'm not fast enough in making a change when a change is needed.
mm,
I
mm,
try very hard. If a situation doesn't work, whether it's with a client, whether it's with an employee, whether it's with anybody, if a
mm,
situation doesn't work out, I try very hard for that to be to my detriment, right? Like I don't want them to lose out because of the relationship. And so I also feel like if the situation's not working out, it's usually my fault. I did not give them the tools they needed to be successful. I did not give them the opportunity to succeed. I am not properly figuring out and utilizing their talents. And sometimes I spend a little too much time trying to do that when the right thing to do, the most aggressive thing to do, is just to find someone better suited for the resources they have available in the job position.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think of like a Steve Jobs as an example of somebody that was very effective, very smart, and a bit of a jerk. Um, uh, One of the things Gary Vee says a lot is he says that like Steve Jobs kind of created this legacy of exactly that. Like to be successful, you got to be aggressive, a bit mean, and like Gary Vee really tries to take the opposite approach. Now, arguably, he's nowhere near has nowhere near the impact that Steve Jobs has. Even Elon Musk, I've heard, can be very direct, and he's like a very soft-spoken guy. But I think like I've read some stories and books about how he just super direct, kind of how you're saying. But I think it can go both ways, like.
It can't go
Uh,
both ways, Caleb. Gary Vee, you can be, listen, I'm not saying you've got to be a complete and total asshole, right? Like, I'm not saying that's the way you've got to go. But Gary Vee has more than enough asshole to move people out of the way when they're, stopping him from achieving what he wants to achieve, right? Like, yeah, he's not a kitten, right? So it's one of those things where you don't have to be mean, but at the same time, you can't. There is too soft, and I'm borderline too soft.
yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So you made your own whiskey recently, and man, have you ever considered selling it online? Because I think that'd be like I always think it's cool when like agencies start their own ecom brand so that they like have that first person experience of being a merchant and stuff like that, and kind of connect with merchants more on that level. Obviously, you got enough on your plate, so that might be the reason. But have you ever thought about selling your whiskey online?
Well, I actually have 10 milliliters of it aging in a barrel back here on the tabletop back here. But you know,
Nice.
selling whiskey is problematic. There's a lot of rules and regulations and laws around
Right,
alcohol
right,
in the United States.
right.
Uh, this you can't ship to a lot of states. Alabama is one of the worst states when it comes to actually selling alcohol from or to. So
Oh,
no,
really?
we have thought about buying a barrel, maybe having a barrel sourced. Creating enough whiskey to make a bunch of bottles is a fairly big endeavor, and so there are places where you could just go buy a whole barrel of whiskey.
And
You
just
could
resell
buy
it.
a barrel of a brand name. Yeah, you could, have it bottled or bottle it yourself and then resell it. There are a lot of companies that do that. I would say 25-30% of the whiskey I have back here on the shelf is actually from somebody that bought a bunch of barrels, blended their own whiskey, bottled it, and marketed it. And
Gotcha.
so that's a fairly common thing, especially if you're starting a distillery.
Yeah.
Well, it's 10 years before you have a 10-year-old product. It's 4 years before you have a 4-year-old product. So a lot of people will source whiskey, bottle it, and sell it as their
That
own
would be
until
that would be the
they're able
move.
to make their own whiskey.
Yeah,
So
that'd
you
definitely be the
you
way to
could
do it.
do that, and we've experimented with or thought about buying some and giving it away. It's still a problem to put our own private label on it. There's still a process to figure that out.
Hmm.
But as far as like customer onboarding or a new employee hired, or trade show giveaways or something, have a 375 milliliter bottle or something that we could include. Let's just say that might happen at some point in the future, but not anytime soon.
Little swag situation.
Yeah, I talked to the local distillery here about their single malt year before last. The last Imagine that we had, where we did the little Hot Wheel cars, and that was actually what we were going to do. We were going to do 375 milliliters of single malt whiskey.
Nice.
Their label but from Opelika with our sticker on it, basically our own decal on it, and give those away. But just the timing of when their whiskey was going to be ready, and Imagine, and the whole concern about giving away alcohol at a trade show.
Yeah.
Just didn't
Are
work out.
there, because there's all these laws about selling alcohol and stuff like that. Are there laws related to giving it away as like swag at a conference or?
Unsure. Crimes of aggression. Crimes of aggression.
Gotcha. What's the next conference that you're going? Do we know at all like when conferences are going to open back up next year? Is there anything even tentatively scheduled?
Yes and no. Obviously the Adobe Summit was canceled for next year, so that's not going to be an in-person event. I'm speaking at some virtual things. I'm speaking at a big commerce conference in Australia early next month.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm talking to some folks at Shopware about possibly doing some stuff with them at their conference next year. So,
Are you looking at Shopware at all?
Things.
Are you?
Not from a let's develop on the platform standpoint at this point, and not because it's not an interesting platform, because it is. But we're a small company, and we're trying to move into some different areas as far as services we offer, and we're putting a lot of time and resources toward that, and not branching out into other platforms. Like if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. I'm not big enough to support 3, 4, 5, 6 platforms.
Yeah. Actually, I'm interested. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, some of the direction you're going as far as more into the kind of the growth marketing side of things. Is that something you want to talk about at all, or?
Sure.
Yeah. So what's
you want me to riff? You have a particular question?
The question is, what's that new direction that you're going in?
Here's the problem. Traditionally, we're a technically focused agency, which means what? We build websites, and development it's pretty much a commodity. That can be argued a little bit. There's good development and bad development, but to a merchant, it's hard to tell the difference between good and bad development until you've already paid for it and received it.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, if we land really big clients, which we have in the past, and we help them with development, eventually their goal is always to take it in-house because it's cheaper. If we land really small clients, which we have in the past, their goal is always to stop paying for it because it's expensive. And so there's a very narrow swatch of clients where they want continuous development. And so, B2B, some, really complex projects, we can land those and we can develop on those for years. But for most merchants, they want the development to stop, or at least that development to be tied to some growth initiative. What is my return? Like, that I understand my cost for the website. My return is going to be, I have a better website and I get more sales. But then once the website's up, what's my return on the spend of continuously developing on this site?
Yeah.
So the goal is to not just be in the engine room feeding the boilers. The goal is to be captaining the ship. So how do we help merchants, especially merchants that maybe don't have the resources or the know-how, how help them understand what they should be doing to grow their business? And so we're going to start by basically doing all of the technical stuff. So it's still technically focused, but what that means is everything outside of paid traffic acquisition. Like we're not going to run your PPC campaigns for now. That may come at some point in the future, but we can do conversion rate optimization, continuous improvement. We can look at, their back office suite of tools. How can we be improving data flow? How can we be improving how they're actually shipping out orders? And just, working with them on a plan to continuously make their e-commerce site better by using data and an actual scientific approach with some measured results.
Right.
That's really the goal of where we're trying to go right now. So we're not just the development team.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately the relationship we end up in lots of times, not from our choosing, but that's just what clients are looking for when they find us. And who am I to sell upstream? Like, you want development, I'll sell you development. Let's do
Yeah.
that. I need to make payroll. So,
Yeah.
but that's,
Yeah. That's
ultimately not the type of agency we want to be.
yeah. No, that's smart to kind of be basically kind of higher up the value chain kind of a thing, to helping them to make sales, like helping to generate. Anytime you're helping to generate revenue, it's a lot easier for the customer to justify spending. Um, so that's cool. How are you liking that? How are you liking that shift to conversion rate optimization and stuff like that?
I mean, it's good so far. It's not that we couldn't do those things before, or we didn't want those relationships before, but it's different to have an actual service and process that's repeatable, that is priced, and we can go to market with it. And so we're actually positioning that from the beginning. So we've been piloting that, we've been working on that. We're still in the early stages of getting, multiple merchants with that type of relationship and engagement. But
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be wonderful. I mean, it's going to solve a lot of problems for us.
Mm-hmm.
There's, from the inconsistency of development contracts, through the, longevity of those engagements.
Mm-hmm.
But also hopefully long term going to decouple our revenue from hours,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
the old meat and seats approach, there's only so many hours, there's only so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as an agency, we're looking for stability so that we can do the fun stuff. We can spin up our own e-commerce brands and pilot stuff and learn from those and bring that back to the merchants we work with. We can create even bigger and better studios to do even better content to reach more people.
Yeah.
We can do training and education and all of the things that we think is lacking in the marketplace right now. And all of that just comes from more money.
Yeah. Something tells me you'll find a way to keep upgrading the studio regardless. But
Running out of space, man. There's only so much more upgrading I can do, and I'm gonna have to move.
on the pricing for it, if you can, I don't know if you want to share how you're pricing it and structuring the offering. I'm always interested in services that, to where if you can put a fixed price to it or some range that is real easy for a customer to understand. I think that helps them to get started with something.
Yeah, we're still kind of working on the price, and the price will go up as we add more services and have more of a proven track record on that, right? Like, you want it to be
Right.
affordable to get more merchants to go for it. And, as you've got more of a proven track record and you're doing a lot more, makes sense for them to pay more for that. Uh, Fixed price is nice, but what's the value you return to them? I don't, at this point, for some merchants, it'll be great. For some merchants, it'll be less, depending on the results we get. I think in an ideal scenario, we would love to price our services based on the value that the merchant gets from that. Now, how that works, I don't know. If anybody watches this has some ideas on how to price it based on the value that you're providing, fine. Let me know. I'm open to those conversations. But the only way I can think of to truly do that, to legitimately do that, rather than just saying it's worth this and you pay it or you don't, is to actually take a percentage, right? Like, I grew your business by this much, I'm going to take a cut of that. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of problems with that as well,
Yeah.
because if it's a big merchant, you could have really big numbers. A small change, like we could change a button color, and that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars for them over the next year or so. And so is
Be like, we
that
picked
fair?
a really good button color.
Yeah. Is that fair though, for picking a button color? Is
Yeah.
it? And then how long does that last? Like, what if you change the button color and the numbers go up and they fired you next month? Right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
barely got paid anything for making them hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of holes there in trying to figure out what's the best way to price something. But we want our success to be tied to our merchant success. And, normally in an agency scenario, that's going to be because they were successful. They kept paying me for the next 10 years, and we were successful. but is that the best way? I don't have the answer to that question, but I'm looking for it.
Yeah. So this brings me to the next one. You recently posted about asking, about the perfect e-commerce product page, and I saw you got a bunch of feedback. We've all heard a bunch of advice around, different things, social proof and things, good photos for product pages. But I was curious if you got any feedback or you got any nuggets on things that were just interesting or new things that you hadn't known beforehand as far as product pages.
Yeah, we're looking to create some content around that. That's one of the topics I'm really trying to dive deep in and do a much bigger content piece around it. There were no things there that just really stuck out, but this is basically based on our research what it comes down to. You want to provide people with the absolute least amount of information that gets them to buy. Now, what is that? Well, that depends. It's a lot like if I'm selling, like with our business, for instance, if somebody comes to us and they want a website. Well, if they Googled around and they found my website or one of my videos, or if they just say they found the website and they contacted us, or they saw us in the phone book or something and they called us, they've got a lot of questions. They
Mhm.
want to know who we've worked with. They want to know, the types of projects we worked on. Can we handle their project? How much does it cost? They're probably cost conscious. There's just a lot of information that they want to know about us, not necessarily, just informing us of their project. If they found the videos, they've got a little more trust. So they saw the videos. They know we put out a lot of content. We're known commodity. We've been around a while. We're partners. They can watch 3 or 4 of them. We can build a relationship. They got a few less questions.
Yeah.
If Magento referred them to us, we don't get any questions about our capabilities. We don't get any questions about are we good enough. Now they may want a client reference or something like that if they're comparing 2 or 3 agencies, but there's not this do you know what you're doing?
Hmm.
And so it's the same thing with your customers, with e-commerce customers. It depends on your business and it depends on your relationship with that customer. When
Right.
they land, if they don't know you at all, social proof, reviews, um, a lot of Instagram posts of people wearing the product or interacting with your brand. All of those things are going to help them overcome those challenges. And so, you have to figure out what's necessary for your market and your product. If you're selling something highly technical, like a digital camera that I've got here, well, you need a lot of specifications and pictures of the ports and what's the input output and what are the accessories that are available and all of the things that I might want to know to buy that. If it's a shirt, some materials, probably all about that's the specs, right?
Mm.
You don't need a ton of specifications for garments. Typically, you need a good description. You need pictures of models wearing it so you know how it fits. Maybe is it sustainably sourced or stuff like that if that applies to your market. So it's different for everybody. We do have a list of things that are um, considered important across the board,
Mm.
but you need to figure out a way to present those to your customers where you prioritize the most common ones that are important to them while having the other ones but de-emphasizing them. So it's not there's not a perfect product page. I guess that's really the answer, right? There is perfect from a standpoint of it has everything you might possibly need, but there's a perfect for you
Hmm. Gotcha.
landing page.
Yeah. So it varies by your audience and your market and stuff. It's funny. I was just thinking about like when I buy something on Amazon, how like bad the product pages are. Like the product description is always like way down the page is some random place, and it's like, I mean, there'll be a lot of information, but it's so like it's so cluttered the way it's like organized. It's just you know,
But
it's
Amazon
crazy.
overcomes that by giving you basically guarantees, right? Like they want you to
Yeah,
buy. So all that stuff's right up there at the top. And
yeah,
then you don't necessarily need social proof. You've got the reviews, but
yeah,
anybody that really trusts Amazon reviews is just misguided because
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
a situation right there. But you've got those reviews. So you look at a few reviews like, oh, okay, this seems fine. But you know that Amazon is basically forcing these people to a certain standard. They have to ship within a certain time or they won't be on the platform. They have to, you can always go to Amazon to get a return if you need to. And so it's moderately safe
Yeah.
in those regards. Whereas if somebody's landing on your page, it's a little more work for you to get in their head and understand what they're looking for.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of merchants, customers of yours that sell on Amazon and other channels and have to figure out like the right way to do that, the right way to sell on Amazon and also to drive people to their own channel and things like that?
Some, a lot of our customers are, if they're real big in automotive, a lot of those don't necessarily push to Amazon. It's just so much competition over there, and
Mm,
so it's a race to the bottom as far as pricing goes. A lot of our customers choose not to sell on Amazon just because they have very distinct or unique products, and a lot of those handle that outside of their ecom platform. So whatever's feeding their ecom platform may also be feeding their Amazon channel. And
right,
if that's the case, we don't always have insights into what they're doing there.
right.
But then there are a few that are pumping stuff over to Amazon, and we're having to constantly deal with issues getting
Mm,
data back from Amazon so that it goes through the
yeah,
site, so that it goes into an order management, so they can actually ship it out, and Amazon doesn't kick them off the platform.
right. With automotive, are there anything with like product pages specific to automotive, or even broader than product pages? Like let's just say conversion optimization in general or improved experience on the e-com site. Like anything that you see that let's say a typical automotive merchant would want to do would tend to not be doing right.
The number one thing for automotive is fitment and reassuring the customer that this product actually fits whatever it is they're shopping for.
Mm,
And if you do that really well, you're usually okay. You want to reinforce quality because auto parts are oftentimes, uh, if you're buying a suspension part and it breaks, that's a big problem. That could be catastrophic for the automobile. If
mm,
you're buying a water pump or whatever, like the labor to install those parts
mm,
is usually more than actually the part costs
mm,
you. And so you want to make sure you're reinforcing the quality of the things that you're selling, especially if they're not a known name brand, so that people will buy that rather than going with some brand name they've heard of.
gotcha. Yeah, I remember. I can't remember what it was. I was trying to buy something for my car, and it's like you're never sure if it's like the exact right like brand or like if it's some, especially if you don't have a lot of experience like tinkering with under the hood kind of a thing, which I didn't. It's like it's a tough thing to buy online. Um, you posted recently about enjoying the progress versus enjoying the process. And you said kind of candidly that you don't enjoy the process like you enjoy the progress. Um, I kind of feel the opposite. Like I feel like, especially with content, when it works, it's because I'm enjoying the process. When it doesn't, it's because I somehow lose that. And then you're just doing it kind of for the sake of doing it. But I wanted to get you to flesh that out. Like with your streams, it seems like you do enjoy doing the streams. You do enjoy hacking on your studio and improving it and all that kind of stuff. So, like, what did you mean by that? Enjoying the progress versus not the process so much.
Yeah, I don't think we're disagreeing. I think we're talking about the same thing,
I think it's
but
emphasis on
I feel
different
like
different aspects of the
it's
issue.
I think it's put it this way. Do I enjoy creating videos? No, not at all. Not in the least bit. Would I rather just be sitting and watching TV or on a beach or sitting with a car? Sure.
I don't
I'd
know.
much
I don't know.
rather doing that.
I don't know how long you can
But
watch TV before you start making a video.
I hate TV. But it's one of those where if I'm making the same video, and we do this from time to time, we're trying to continuously improve, but I go through periods where I just don't have the time to focus on it. And, we're trying to hire resources, trying to hire marketing directors so that we're continuously improving our content and our marketing. But right now, there's stretches where I just can't put the effort into it. And so we go on autopilot. Like, we try to write some scripts, we put some stuff together, but it's the same video. You'll go through 4, 5, 6 videos. It's the same video. It's a talking head video where I'm sitting here spouting stuff about something. And I don't enjoy those. I don't enjoy that. What I enjoy is the last video we put out where I tried to push the envelope a little bit with the thumbnail, or we tried to add a little bit of graphics, or we're trying to do some green screen stuff on the live stream and really add to the engagement of that. And so seeing the progress, seeing the small steps, seeing it slowly get better, and then to be able to look at what I did a year ago or 2 years ago and see how much it actually has improved based on those baby steps, that's exciting to me. That's fun. I'm learning something. I'm pushing the envelope. I'm trying to do something that nobody else has done before. That's exciting. Creating a video, that sucks. Like, who wants to do that? Like, once I get good at something, I have absolutely no desire to do it. That's just full stop. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Once I'm good at something, I don't want to do it anymore. If I've learned all there is to know about something, I'm done with it. I'm moving on to something else because there's no progress in that.
Yeah. I think that's what's universal is people. I was talking to somebody yesterday saying basically the same thing, is that, like, if you're not learning, if you're not feeling challenged, that's kind of the fundamental thing that is enjoyable about work, is when you're learning and growing. I saw somebody say recently, it was really interesting. It was like, there should be an equivalent, and this is the other side of the coin. They were talking about like scales when you're doing piano, which is like a repetitive thing that you do playing piano to practice and get better. And they were saying that you should have something equivalent to doing scales that you're doing in your work life and your business life, of things that you do repeatedly. It can be a little monotonous, but it's like you're practicing your craft, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get better at something you don't like, if you're a video editor and you want to get better at editing, then sure, edit a whole bunch. How you have to do it. If I want to get better at videos, I have to create a bunch of videos. But I don't enjoy creating videos. I enjoy getting better. Like, if I could choose to just be better and not have to create any videos to do it, I would do that. So I really think that people are talking about the same thing. Like, when people say enjoy the process, that's what they're talking about. Enjoy those small victories. Enjoy constantly be looking for ways to get better and push through that. And then, enjoy the reward that comes with the pain that you've put into it. And I'm saying the same thing, but in a slightly different way, because I don't think it's necessarily the process of creating. I don't want people to think that just doing is the same thing as evolving and learning and getting better.
Yeah. Like, for me, like, like as an example, what I realize is that with doing interviews, there's been interviews in the past that I wasn't that interested in. I didn't necessarily enjoy the interview, but I did it because it made sense it was relevant to the niche, to the audience, or whatever. And then, like, and what I now am realizing is that, like, I think that all of the best podcasts are like this, that the host is genuinely interested in the guest, and when that's not there, it's like there's something it's just not quite as good. So, like, I'm trying to stay in that zone for myself personally, and sometimes that might mean doing an interview that's maybe not quite as technically relevant to the e-commerce audience or whatever. But if my interest is there, then it kind of keeps that engine going,
Absolutely. There's no sense in doing something you're not interested in. And if it's not interesting to you, it's not going to be interesting to the audience, because you're not going to try to extract that value from the guest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a podcaster, the best are always looking for better ways to craft that story. How do you go just a little bit deeper with the questions? How do you phrase them? How do you pace them? What's the order? that you ask those questions so that they build upon each other to
Right.
then present this piece of content that is engaging.
Right.
So
Right.
there's a lot of work to continuously improve outside of just being interested in the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's funny because I've been doing like a podcast a day for, I don't know, the past couple of weeks. And as I watch them back, I realized like the very beginning part of it can be a little clunky and a little slow to get started. And then so I started looking at podcasts that I watch and see, like Joe Rogan, for example, and I'll see how they start and how they get into the conversation, and it's always like so smooth. And I was like, and you realize like how good they are at just keeping a conversation going, and just you see those little things. And so anyway, that's something I'm trying to work on, but it's funny how those little things can be hard to get right, you know.
And early on, it matters the most. Like if people are going to bail after a minute,
Yeah.
if you've got a minute,
Exactly.
minutes, you probably have a minute or two on a podcast.
Yeah.
On a video, a YouTube video, you've got seconds.
Yeah.
And so you better get started pretty quickly. If you're slow to begin, then you're just never going to grow the audience.
Yeah. Well, I think the way to go, and I kind of want to start doing this, is what a lot of YouTube videos do is, let's say there's a longer one, they'll inject in the beginning of the video like a highlight clip for a few seconds, and then they'll go into an intro sequence. So I kind of want to start doing that, and I'll always like take a clip and post the clip separately, which usually does well. But I want to also inject that into the YouTube video itself, because like you're saying, that first few seconds experience, like it's, if if you go back and watch something back and it starts kind of slowly, you're like, I don't know if this is gonna go anywhere. But then it's like you also only have so much time to do all this stuff. So like if you try, it's like we were talking about earlier, like if you try to make everything so perfect, then you just end up like it's too much work, so then you kind of give up on it. Whereas like the heart of it is the actual conversation and the person. So it can be, you can get off track a little bit, you know.
You definitely don't want to make it too complicated. You don't want to make it too profound. It just goes back to what's held me back in my content for a long time. It's one of the things I learned the most from being involved in the Adobe Insiders and seeing how a lot of those folks create their content. Is, I go there and I'm trying to create this masterpiece. I'm trying to paint the Mona Lisa. And these guys are having just incredible success with a whole bunch of finger paintings, right? And it's not knocking their content, but it is small, consumable, bite-sized pieces of content because it's social media. People's attention is low, and so they don't want the Mona Lisa. They're not going to consume that. 3 people would actually consume that piece of content, as opposed to thousands of people consuming a lot of much smaller bite-sized pieces of content. And so don't try to go too far with that. But on the same token, you've got to continuously improve it and try to make it slightly more sophisticated, I guess.
Yeah.
Complicated, but sophisticated.
Yeah. One of the annoying things specifically about putting the highlight clip into the beginning is, one of the things I rely on to create the highlight clip is I'll upload it to YouTube. And then one of the things that's so helpful is YouTube does the auto subtitles. So I will scroll through the subtitles when I'm looking for that highlight clip. And that a lot of times helps me to find it, versus if I'm just scrubbing around randomly, it's just too hard to find. But I don't have that until I've uploaded it. So now I'd have to like re-upload it or something crazy. So anyway, just, hacking away on my little process.
I'm not sure. I think with my setup here, I believe there are markers I can set. So if I could press a button, and this system has instant replay. So in theory, if I weren't paying attention to the stream, if I had someone here, they could literally clip that and have that clip ready in real time for me to actually leverage in the live stream. So something like that, to where as you're going through, just hitting a marker that says, even if you just had Slack open and you knew what time the video started, And then as you're going through, when you're streaming, if you just put a key into Slack, you could see the timestamps to know roughly this is where something really profound was said, so I could jump back into it. Is that it is difficult. That's what most people don't realize. We don't watch our own content. We understand if y'all don't watch it, because I'm not watching. I cannot tell you the last live stream I actually rewatched. I was there. I don't need to rewatch it. Right. And so I probably do to figure out how to improve it, but it takes hours. If it took an hour to upload it or to create it, then I'm going to spend an hour watching it, and then I'm going to have to go back and go through it and clip it. And it's just, it's 4, 5, 6 hours after the live stream to get all the things done. Yeah. I'm going to have to hire somebody to do that because TJ's not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, it was fun. It was fun getting a chance to catch up with you, man. And where is the best place for people to find you online these days?
You can find me just about anywhere at eCommerceAholic. I spend the most time on Twitter. So probably if you want to reach me, that's where. If you send me a message on LinkedIn, probably not going to answer.
Nice. All right, man. Good stuff. I'll talk to you soon.